Marcus Ralston stood at the threshold of the Varkar headquarters, the cold, metallic air of the alien capital stinging his skin like the bitterest frost. His boots, cracked and worn from a long journey, made no sound on the polished floor as he was escorted down the hall. He didn't need to speak, nor did he want to. The Varkar had no need for his words. They'd already seen the data, read the reports, and analyzed the wreckage of Earth. They knew he was the last human to make it off the dying planet. Around him, the walls shimmered with the harsh gleam of alien technology, their curved edges sharp and deliberate. It felt like walking through the heart of a beast, its pulse echoing through every surface, every chamber. The Varkar Union had been merciless, and Marcus had survived the worst they could throw at him. But even now, something in his chest tightened. He could still see the remnants of Earth, of humanity's last moments. The scars left in his mind would never heal. As he was brought into the interrogation room, his eyes darted around the chamber. A simple table stood between him and the Varkar General seated across from him. The smooth, insectoid features of General Rakka-Toth shimmered in the harsh light, her black exoskeleton contrasting with the gleaming metal of the room. Her eyes, yellow and cold, never left his face. "You are the last to return from Earth," she said, her voice a controlled hiss. "Tell me why. What happened to your forces?" Marcus didn't respond immediately. The question was a trap, her calm voice, her inflection, it was all designed to rattle him. But Marcus had seen too much death to be rattled. He crossed his arms and leaned back in his chair, refusing to let her see the cracks in his resolve. "I'm not telling you anything," he said quietly, his voice low but firm. He studied her, his expression unreadable. Rakka-Toth tilted her head slightly, as if intrigued by his response. "You think your silence will protect humanity? The humans who sent you here are dead. Earth is a graveyard. Your people have lost. You're the last one. You have no power here." Marcus' gaze hardened, and his thoughts flashed to the memory of the final battle. The Varkar ships had overwhelmed them, overwhelming in both number and firepower. Earth's defenses had been shattered, humanity's forces scattered. But despite the destruction, despite the crushing losses, the humans had held out as long as they could. "The Varkar don't understand," Marcus muttered, his voice almost to himself. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You never will." Rakka-Toth's eyes narrowed. "You're in no position to lecture me, human. You are nothing now. A prisoner. And like all prisoners, you will speak eventually. You will tell us what we need to know." She pressed a button on the console beside her, and the chamber shifted. The air turned colder, and the lights dimmed, replaced by a dull, pulsating red glow. A low hum filled the room as the walls seemed to close in. Marcus didn't flinch. "You can do whatever you want," he said, his voice low and steady. "You can torture me, you can break me. But you won't find anything. Not from me." Rakka-Toth's lips twitched in what could have been a smile. "We'll see about that." She pressed another button. A low hiss filled the air as a vapor of strange gas seeped into the room, curling around Marcus' face. His eyes widened briefly, but he steeled himself, breathing through the discomfort. He had endured worse on Earth. The Varkar, for all their strength, were predictable. And Marcus wasn't the type to break easily. "You'll learn," she said, her tone almost playful now, "that your will can be shattered. Not by force, but by your own mind. You won't be able to resist forever." Marcus didn't say anything, letting the gas fill his lungs. The room seemed to stretch, the walls moving closer, as if closing in on him. His thoughts began to blur, but he pushed them away. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction. The gas continued to seep in, its effect beginning to take hold. For a moment, his mind slipped, he saw images, flashes of his last moments on Earth. Fire. Explosions. The screams of his comrades as they were wiped out one by one. And then, the final battle. The last stand. Marcus alone, at the helm of the last human ship, fighting to the bitter end. It was the memories of those final days that kept him anchored. His crew, his friends, they had all died to buy him time. They had died to ensure that humanity would survive. The human race may have fallen, but Marcus would carry that flame. He couldn't afford to break now. Not after everything they had given. He clutched the edge of the table, his knuckles white. He was sweating now, but he focused on the image of Earth's dying sky, the remnants of their cities, and the promise he had made to the people who had died for him. The gas began to dissipate, and the room returned to its previous, sterile condition. Rakka-Toth watched him, her gaze unblinking. She had expected him to falter, but Marcus had withstood her manipulation. "I told you," Marcus said, his voice now hoarse, but filled with quiet defiance. "You can't break me." Rakka-Toth leaned forward, her mandibles twitching. "I will find your weakness. You'll speak, one way or another. And when you do, the humans will be erased. Erased like the insects you are." Marcus met her gaze. "It doesn't matter," he said, voice low but unwavering. "Humanity may be gone, but we'll come back. We'll rise again. And when we do, we'll tear down everything you've built." Rakka-Toth paused for a moment, as if contemplating his words. Then, with a flick of her hand, the door to the room opened. "We are done for now," she said, her voice colder than before. "You'll be returned to your cell. And we will continue this conversation soon." As the guards dragged him away, Marcus couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope deep inside. The Varkar might have crushed Earth, but humanity wasn't gone. Not yet. And as long as he was alive, as long as he could fight, humanity would find a way. They always did. The walls of the Varkar interrogation chamber were cold, their polished surfaces reflecting the harsh glow of the ceiling lights. Marcus Ralston sat in silence, his hands cuffed to the armrests of the chair. His mind was sharp, though the slight thrum in his head told him the effects of the Varkar's bioagent were still lingering. The cold, sterile air of the chamber had begun to feel suffocating. Every breath he took was a reminder of his isolation. Across from him, General Rakka-Toth sat poised, her yellow eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She studied him with a detached interest, her thin, insectoid fingers tapping rhythmically against the table. There was a coldness in her presence that was palpable, as if the very air in the room bent to her will. "You're holding up remarkably well," she remarked, her voice calm, yet laced with a quiet malice. "The bioagent should have broken your mind. Most humans succumb after the first dose. But you're different, aren't you, Captain Ralston?" Marcus met her gaze, his eyes hard as stone. "You can keep trying, but you won't find anything. Not from me." Rakka-Toth tilted her head, her expression unreadable. She leaned forward, her claws clicking softly against the table. "You don't understand, do you?" she said, her voice low and almost intimate. "I'm not interested in breaking you, at least not in the way you think. I want to understand why you are so determined to hold on to this human defiance. It's fascinating." Marcus clenched his jaw, the memory of Earth's fall surging through him. The last hours of the battle, the screams of the dying, the fires that had consumed their cities, those images never left him. But he had no intention of giving her the satisfaction of knowing his thoughts. "You'll never understand," he said flatly. "You're not human." Rakka-Toth's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement, though her face remained impassive. "I understand more than you think. Your race is doomed to extinction. Even if I never break you, even if you never speak, humanity will fall. You're the last one. And you'll die alone." A chill ran down Marcus's spine, but he didn't flinch. She wanted him to react, to show weakness, but he wouldn't give her that. Earth had fallen, yes, but he would carry its last remnants, its last hope, on his shoulders. He wouldn't give up on humanity, even if it was just a memory now. "You think you've won," Marcus said, his voice steady. "You think you've wiped us out. But you're wrong. There's more to us than just Earth. And even if you kill me, there are others out there. You'll never be rid of us." Rakka-Toth's yellow eyes narrowed. "And what's left to fight for, human? Your planet is a graveyard. Your military is scattered, broken. What is it that you're holding on to? A myth of redemption? Her voice became colder, sharper. It's over. For the first time since his capture, Marcus allowed himself a small, bitter smile. You're right about one thing. It's over. But not for me. And not for the rest of humanity. The silence that followed stretched long, thick with tension. Rakka-Toth leaned back in her chair, studying him with an unreadable expression. Marcus didn't let his guard slip, his thoughts a steel trap. He couldn't afford to let her in, couldn't afford to let her chip away at him. Not now. You think your survival means something, Rakka-Toth continued, her voice almost gentle now. But you're only delaying the inevitable. What good is it to live, when everything you fought for is gone? When your people are gone? Her words struck a chord deep within Marcus, but he held firm. He had seen Earth burn. He had watched his comrades fall. But in the ashes, he had seen something else, humanity's refusal to die. He had seen their resilience in every corner of the galaxy. The war might have been lost, but the spirit of humanity was not so easily snuffed out. I don't need a reason to live, he said quietly. I live because I can. Because even when everything is gone, we still find a way to fight. You might have destroyed Earth, but you haven't destroyed us. Rakka-Toth leaned forward again, her voice lowering to a near whisper. You're naive. Your species is weak. You can't hold on to a past that no longer exists. You can't rebuild from nothing. Marcus met her gaze, his voice steady but fierce. You underestimate us. You think we're weak, but it's that same weakness that makes us dangerous. We adapt. We survive. And that's why, in the end, we'll always win. Rakka-Toth's face remained impassive, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a glint of something unfamiliar, perhaps uncertainty. She didn't show it often, but for the first time in their conversation, Marcus saw a crack in her facade. You have a strange belief in your kind, she said, her voice soft but edged with a venomous calm. But I'll make sure you understand the truth. I'll make you see how futile your resistance is. We will break you. And we will end your species once and for all. Marcus sat back in his chair, unfazed. He had heard the threats before, seen the horror, felt the weight of the universe crashing down on him. But he had never believed in their power. The Varkar were strong, yes. But they didn't understand what it meant to be human. You'll try, he said, his voice low and unwavering. But it'll never be enough. You can't break what's already been broken. You can't crush what you don't understand. Rakka-Toth rose from her seat, her claws clicking softly on the table as she moved to the side of the room. We shall see. You may be strong, human, but your mind will crumble eventually. I will make sure of it. With that, she turned away, the door sliding open behind her. This session is over. You'll have time to think. But remember this, there is no escaping the inevitable. As the door slid shut behind her, Marcus was left alone in the dimly lit chamber. The weight of her words hung in the air, but he didn't let them take root. He had survived the worst the Varkar could throw at him so far. And he would survive whatever came next. Humanity might be scattered, broken, but it wasn't finished. Not yet. And as long as he breathed, he would carry the fight forward. Whatever it took. The cold metal of the Varkar cell was oppressive, pressing down on Marcus like the weight of 1,000 years. He had been alone for days, perhaps longer. Time had lost its meaning in the sterile, unchanging darkness of his prison. He sat in the center of the small room, his eyes tracing the lines of the walls, looking for anything that might offer a glimmer of hope. But there was nothing. Just the faint hum of alien technology, the pulse of a world that had no place for him. Marcus wasn't sure what hurt more, the emptiness of his surroundings or the relentless, gnawing pain of knowing that Earth, his home, was gone. His people were gone. The weight of his survival hung around his neck like a noose. He had promised to carry the memory of humanity forward, but now, as he sat in this prison, the meaning of that promise seemed more elusive than ever. His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden hiss of the door opening. A figure stepped into the room, casting a long shadow across the floor. Marcus stood without a word, his body tensing instinctively, even though he knew he was too weak to put up much of a fight. General Rakka-Toth entered, flanked by 2 of her guards. Her insectoid form was as imposing as ever, and the cruel glint in her yellow eyes sent a chill through his chest. She didn't speak immediately, her gaze sweeping over him, as though appraising his state. It had been a few days since their last conversation, and the silence between them had become a strange tension, one that felt like the calm before a storm. "I trust you've had time to think," she said, her voice laced with an almost mocking politeness. "Time to reflect on your situation." Marcus said nothing, his gaze fixed on her. He knew the drill by now, she would try to break him again, try to twist his mind into something unrecognizable. But no matter what she did, it wouldn't matter. His resolve was unyielding. He had nothing left to lose, and that gave him an edge she could never understand. "I have no intention of breaking," he replied, his voice low and steady. "You can do whatever you want. I won't speak." Rakka-Toth cocked her head, her mandibles clicking as she observed him. "You think your silence is some sort of victory, don't you?" she asked, almost intrigued. "You think it matters in the grand scheme of things? You're one man, alone, imprisoned on my ship. Your species is finished. Every last one of your people is dead or scattered, and all you have left is stubbornness." Marcus didn't flinch. "It's not about being stubborn. It's about surviving. You think you've won, but you haven't. Not really. You took Earth. You destroyed my people. But you'll never understand why we fight. And that's why you'll never truly win." The general's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a more dangerous tone. "Don't misunderstand me, Captain Ralston. I'm not trying to break you because I want information. I'm doing it because I want you to understand. I want you to see the futility of your race. You say you fight for survival, but you're just delaying the inevitable." Marcus held her gaze, unwavering. "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's inevitable. But that's what makes us different from you. We don't need to win. We don't need to survive. We fight because it's in our nature. Even in the face of extinction, we will not kneel." There was a flicker of something in Rakka-Toth's eyes, perhaps a recognition of something she hadn't expected. It was gone as quickly as it came, but it had been there. For just a moment, she was human, too. A predator. A survivor. "You speak as if you still have something to fight for," she said, her voice low and filled with contempt. "There's nothing left for you, Captain. Nothing but a few meager scraps of hope. You're just prolonging the inevitable. Humanity is gone, and you are the last of your kind. What is it that you're clinging to?" Marcus' chest tightened as her words cut through him, but he refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing him falter. "I'm clinging to the same thing you are, General," he said quietly, his voice steady. "A reason to keep fighting." Rakka-Toth's eyes narrowed, and she stepped back, her expression unreadable. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. The air felt thick, charged with something that neither of them had fully articulated. But Marcus could feel it, the unspoken truth that they were more alike than either of them cared to admit. "You're a fascinating creature, Captain Ralston," she said finally, her voice returning to its previous, measured tone. "I thought you'd break by now. I thought your resolve would crack under pressure. But you're stronger than I imagined. Almost human." Marcus didn't respond. He wasn't interested in her attempts at flattery. He knew exactly what she was trying to do, to chip away at his sense of self, to make him question everything. But he wouldn't give in. Not now. Not after everything he had seen, everything he had lost. "You're wasting your time," he said. "You'll never understand." Rakka-Toth regarded him with something that might have been respect, but it was hard to tell. "Perhaps. But I've been ordered to bring you to the council. They wish to see the last of the humans. They want to witness your final moments." She paused, her voice lowering. "And then we'll decide what to do with you. Perhaps we'll put an end to your suffering. Perhaps not." The words hit him harder than he expected. The finality of them. The realization that he might never leave the ship alive, that the human race might be forever erased from the galaxy. But even in the face of that finality, Marcus didn't feel fear. He felt something else, something deeper than dread. It was a strange sense of calm, of acceptance. He had already given everything he could. He had nothing left to lose. "You can't erase what's inside of me," Marcus said, his voice steady. "You might destroy Earth, you might wipe out every trace of humanity. But you'll never take our spirit. You'll never take what makes us human." Rakka-Toth's mandibles twitched. "I think you misunderstand, Captain. We don't want your spirit. We just want you to understand your place in the galaxy." Marcus locked eyes with her. "I already understand," he said quietly. "I'm the last soldier. And I'll carry the memory of humanity until my last breath." The general didn't respond. She turned on her heel, signaling for the guards to take Marcus away. The door slid open, and the guards approached, but Marcus didn't resist. He walked with them, his head held high, the weight of his past and future bearing down on him, but it didn't matter. He was the last. And that, in itself, was something worth fighting for.